Some people sell a used car with a dodgy engine. Others sell the Eiffel Tower, twice. This isn't about small, everyday fibs. We're talking about the colossal, history-altering deceptions that built empires and fooled millions. Today, we're unmasking the 33 most audacious liars who prove that if a lie is big enough, people will fall for it. 1. Rosie Ruiz. Winning the Boston Marathon is one of the ultimate tests of human endurance. It requires months of training, incredible stamina, and a will of iron. Or you could just do what Rosie Ruiz did in 1980 and take the subway. Seriously, she was crowned the winner with the third fastest female time in history, but something was off. She wasn't sweating, her hair was perfect, and she looked less like a marathon champion and more like someone who just finished a light jog to the mailbox. When interviewed, she couldn't even explain basic running terms. It soon came out that she had jumped out of the crowd about a mile from the finish line after taking public transit for most of the race. She didn't just cheat, she revolutionized laziness. 2. Kim Il-sung. When it comes to building a cult of personality, nobody beats the founder of North Korea. His entire legacy is built on a mountain of lies so absurd, it's almost impressive. According to official state propaganda, Kim Il-sung did not defecate or urinate. That's just level 1. He also supposedly wrote 1,500 books in 3 years while at university. And in his very first game of golf, he shot an incredible 38 under par, which included 11 holes in one. The state-run media also claims his birth was heralded by a double rainbow and a new star in the sky. These aren't just fun facts. This is the mandatory state-enforced reality for millions of people. It's a lie so total, it became a religion. 3. Michael Fagan. Imagine this. In 1982, a man breaks into Buckingham Palace, navigates the corridors, and finds himself in Queen Elizabeth II's bedroom. For 10 minutes, he sits on her bed and has a chat with the monarch. When he was arrested, the press went wild. Fagan fed them a heroic story about a concerned citizen, a man so worried about unemployment that he undertook a daring mission to discuss politics with the Queen herself. It was a romantic, working-class hero narrative. The truth, which Fagan admitted decades later, was far less glamorous. He was just drunk, high on mushrooms, got lost looking for a toilet, and accidentally stumbled into the Queen's bedroom. He didn't want to discuss politics. He probably just wanted to ask for directions. 4. Victor Lustig. There are con artists, and then there is Victor Lustig. This man was the Michelangelo of scams. In 1925, he read an article about how the Eiffel Tower was in disrepair and costly to maintain. An idea sparked. Posing as a government official, he gathered a group of scrap metal dealers for a top-secret meeting. He convinced them that the tower was being torn down and sold for scrap. One dealer fell for it, paying Lustig a massive bribe to secure the deal. Lustig immediately fled to Vienna with the cash. But here's the genius part. After a month, he realized the story never broke in the papers because the victim was too embarrassed. So he went back to Paris and did it all over again with a different group of dealers. He didn't just sell the Eiffel Tower, he sold it twice. 5. The Fox Sisters. In the mid-19th century, two teenage girls, Kate and Margaret Fox, accidentally launched the entire global movement of spiritualism, a religion based on communicating with the dead. They claimed a spirit in their house would respond to questions with a series of knocks and raps. Soon, they were national celebrities, conducting seances for crowds of believers, including famous intellectuals and socialites. For decades, they were the high priestesses of the supernatural. The truth? It was all a prank that got way out of hand. The mysterious spirit rappings were just the girls expertly and secretly cracking the joints in their toes and ankles. The entire foundation of a worldwide faith was, quite literally, based on a pair of noisy feet. 6. Ctesias of Cnidus. Before the internet gave us fake news and conspiracy theories, we had ancient Greek physician Ctesias of Cnidus. In the 4th century BC, he wrote a book called Indica, supposedly a detailed history and description of India. a land he had never actually visited. Instead of doing any research, he just made stuff up. And boy, did he get creative. His version of India was filled with cynocephaly, men with the heads of dogs, marticorus, man-eating monsters with human faces, and giant, dog-sized ants that dug up gold. What's truly insane is that because Ctesias was considered a respected historian, his ridiculous fantasies were accepted as fact for centuries by other scholars, including Aristotle. He was basically the world's first clickbait author. 7. Cassie Chadwick. Some liars weave complex webs of deceit, but Cassie Chadwick built an empire on a single, powerful hint. In the high society of the late 19th century, she let it slip that she was the illegitimate and therefore secret daughter of the steel tycoon Andrew Carnegie, one of the richest men in the world. She never outright claimed it, she just implied it. And that was enough. Bankers, blinded by greed and the chance to get in good with Carnegie, started throwing money at her. She racked up millions of dollars in loans, all secured by the vague promise of a massive inheritance. She lived a life of unimaginable luxury for years, all because people were more willing to believe a juicy secret than to make a single phone call to verify it. 8. Han van Meegeren. Here's a story of artistic revenge that spiraled into international crime. Han van Meegeren was a Dutch painter whose own work was constantly rejected by critics. They called him unoriginal and derivative. Frustrated and bitter, he decided to prove his genius in a rather unique way, by forging masterpieces of the 17th century painter Johannes Vermeer. His forgeries were so technically brilliant that he fooled the world's top art experts. He became rich selling his newly discovered Vermeers. But the best part? During World War II, he sold a fake Vermeer to Hermann Göring, one of the highest-ranking Nazi officials. When the war ended, von Meegeren was arrested for collaborating with the enemy by selling off a national treasure. The only way to prove his innocence was to confess to the much greater crime of being a master forger. 9. Aleister Crowley. If you're going to lie, why not go big? Like, I am the Antichrist big. Crowley, a British occultist, styled himself as the Great Beast 666 and built an entire persona around being the most wicked man in the world. He claimed to possess immense magical powers, to communicate with trans-dimensional beings, and to be ushering in a new age for humanity. In reality, he was a master of self-promotion and theatricality. Most of his magic involved a lot of dramatic rituals, weird sex, and taking advantage of his wealthy, gullible followers. He wasn't so much a demonic prophet as he was the original goth influencer, a man who built a legendary cult by convincing everyone he was the villain from a horror movie. 10. Anna Anderson. For over 60 years, a woman known as Anna Anderson captivated the world with one of history's most compelling and tragic stories. She claimed she was Anastasia Romanov, the youngest daughter of the last Russian Tsar, who had miraculously survived the execution of her entire family. Her tale of escape and hidden identity was so powerful that it divided the remaining Russian aristocracy, some of whom funded her lavish lifestyle, while others denounced her as a fraud. She fought for her claim in courts for decades. It was a lie she took to her grave. It wasn't until years after her death that DNA testing finally proved what many had suspected. She was actually a Polish factory worker with a history of mental illness. She wasn't royalty, but she was the undisputed queen of commitment to a lie. 11. Giacomo Casanova. The name Casanova has become shorthand for a legendary lover, and he certainly cultivated that reputation. But his greatest talent wasn't seduction, it was deception. His famous memoirs are a masterclass in self-aggrandizement, but the truth is he was a first-class adventurer and grifter who used his charm for more than just romance. He was a spy, a gambler, a fake alchemist, and a con artist who sold bogus health elixirs to the rich and foolish. Seducing women was just one part of a much larger con, the con of being a man of importance and wealth. He lived a life of luxury, financed almost entirely by his wits and his willingness to tell people exactly what they wanted to hear, whether in the bedroom or the bank. 12. Charles Ponzi. This man didn't just tell a lie. He created a business model so iconic it's now named after him. In the 1920s, Charles Ponzi promised investors an insane 50% return in just 45 days. His stated method was a brilliant but obscure form of arbitrage involving international postal reply coupons. The truth? The method was logistically impossible on the scale he claimed. So how did he pay the massive returns? Simple. He just used the money from new investors to pay off the earlier ones. It was a financial house of cards, a pure, unadulterated lie that worked because it tapped directly into human greed. For a glorious year, he was hailed as a financial wizard, living like a king before the whole thing inevitably and spectacularly collapsed, wiping out thousands of investors. 13. Misha de Fonseca. In 1997, the world was moved by a harrowing memoir titled Misha, a Memoir of the Holocaust Years. It told the story of a young Jewish girl who, after her parents were deported, survived by trekking across Europe alone and was even adopted by a pack of wolves. It was an astonishing tale of resilience. It was also a complete fabrication. Years later, after a legal dispute over profits, it was revealed that the author's real name was Monique de Wael. She was not Jewish, her parents were not deported, and she had spent the entire war safely in Belgium. She had stolen the trauma of a real genocide to create a best-selling fantasy, proving that sometimes the most despicable lies are the ones that exploit the deepest truths. 14. Mao Zedong. Some lies are told to gain money or fame. Others are told to gain power, and these are the most dangerous of all. In 1958, Chinese leader Mao Zedong launched the Great Leap Forward, a campaign based on the monumental lie that China could transform from an agrarian society into a communist paradise overnight. He forced peasants into communes and ordered them to produce steel in primitive backyard furnaces, melting down their own tools to do so. He presented falsified reports of record-breaking harvests and industrial output to the world, creating an illusion of success. The reality was a catastrophe. The campaign led directly to the Great Chinese Famine, a man-made disaster that resulted in the deaths of tens of millions of people from starvation. 15. George Psalmanazar. In the early 1700s, London's high society was utterly fascinated by a strange visitor from a distant land. A blonde, blue-eyed man calling himself George Psalmanazar claimed to be a native of Formosa, which is modern-day Taiwan. He was an instant sensation. He translated texts, he lectured at universities, and he even wrote a best-selling book detailing the bizarre customs of his homeland. According to him, Formosans ate raw meat, lived in underground cities, and annually sacrificed 20,000 boys' hearts to their gods. He invented an entire language and alphabet. The only problem? He had never been east of Germany. He was a very creative European who realized that if your lie is exotic enough, the most educated people will be the most eager to believe it. 16. Elizabeth Holmes. In the heart of Silicon Valley, Elizabeth Holmes spun a lie that mesmerized billionaires, generals, and world leaders. Dressed in a signature black turtleneck, she claimed her company, Theranos, had invented a revolutionary device that could run hundreds of medical tests from a single drop of blood. She was hailed as the next Steve Jobs, a visionary who would change healthcare forever. Her company was valued at over $9 billion. But behind the curtain, there was nothing. The technology was a complete failure. The revolutionary tests were often being run on commercially available machines from other companies. For years, she maintained the fiction, faking demonstrations and threatening employees, putting thousands of actual patients' health at risk with inaccurate results. 17. Richard Nixon. I am not a crook. It's one of the most famous and most ironic phrases ever uttered by an American president. In the face of the mounting Watergate scandal, Richard Nixon went on national television and confidently declared his innocence. But this wasn't just a simple denial. It was the capstone of a massive coordinated conspiracy of lies. For months, his administration had engaged in a cover-up involving hush money, destroyed evidence, and perjury to hide their involvement in a break-in at the Democratic National Committee headquarters. Nixon's lie wasn't just a personal failing, it was a constitutional crisis that shattered the American public's trust in their government. His lie was so profound that Gate became a universal suffix for any new political scandal, a permanent scar on the presidency. 18. Gregor MacGregor. Why settle for lying about yourself when you can lie an entire country into existence? In the 1820s, Scottish adventurer Gregor MacGregor arrived in London and declared himself the cacique, or prince, of a newly established nation called Poyas, located on the coast of Honduras. He described a paradise with fertile land, gold in the rivers, and a sophisticated capital city. He didn't just tell stories. He produced maps, land deeds, and even a national flag. He sold plots of land to hundreds of hopeful British settlers and investors, who then chartered ships and sailed to their new home. When they arrived, they found nothing but a malaria-infested jungle. There was no city, no infrastructure, just mosquitoes and despair. 2/3 of the original settlers died. MacGregor lied so well he committed mass negligent homicide. 19. Richard Wagner. Richard Wagner was a musical genius who composed some of the most powerful and transformative operas ever written. He was also a pathological liar, a narcissist, and an absolute nightmare of a human being, especially when it came to money. Wagner lived his life in a state of perpetual financial chaos, accumulating massive debts he had no intention of ever repaying. He would borrow extravagantly from friends, patrons, and even royalty, all while living a life of opulent luxury he couldn't afford. He would promise them future earnings from his next great work, then simply move to a new city and find new victims. His entire career was a symphony of deception, manipulating everyone around him to fund his grandiose artistic vision. For Wagner, the world was just a piggy bank for his genius. 20. Jordan Belfort. You've probably seen the movie The Wolf of Wall Street, but the reality behind Jordan Belfort's lie is even more cynical. His firm, Stratton Oakmont, wasn't just bending the rules of finance. Its entire business model was a finely tuned machine of pure deception. The pump-and-dump scheme was their bread and butter. Belfort and his army of young, aggressive brokers would buy up massive amounts of worthless penny stocks, then cold call unsuspecting investors and use high-pressure sales tactics and outright lies to artificially inflate the stock's price. Once the price peaked, they would sell off all their shares for a massive profit, causing the stock to crash and leaving their clients with worthless paper. It was a lie that weaponized greed and made him millions by preying on the financial dreams of ordinary people. 21. Denis Vrain Lucas. In the 19th century, a brilliant French mathematician named Michel Chasles was brought to his knees by one of the most absurdly stupid forgeries in history. He was sold thousands of original historical documents by a man named Denis Vrain Lucas. These weren't just any documents. They were letters from figures like Alexander the Great to Aristotle, Mary Magdalene to Lazarus, and, most incredibly, Cleopatra to Julius Caesar. The catch? They were all written in medieval French. Yes, you heard that right. An ancient Egyptian queen writing to a Roman general in a language that wouldn't exist for another 1,000 years. Chasles was so desperate to prove a historical theory that he ignored this glaring, gigantic red flag. Vrain Lucas's scam proved a valuable lesson. It doesn't matter how dumb your lie is if your target is smart enough to fool themselves. 22. James Macpherson. In the 1760s, Scottish poet James Macpherson caused a worldwide literary sensation. He published a series of epic poems which he claimed were translations of the works of an ancient Gaelic bard named Ossian. The poems were an instant smash hit, celebrated across Europe as a raw, authentic voice from the mists of Celtic history. Napoleon loved them. Thomas Jefferson was a huge fan. There was just one tiny issue. Ossian never existed. Macpherson had written the entire thing himself, masterfully imitating an ancient style. When challenged, he couldn't produce any original manuscripts, leading to a massive literary scandal. He essentially created a fake national poet for Scotland. And his lie was so compelling that it helped launch the Romantic movement across the continent. 23. Christophe Rocancourt. Nicknamed the fake Rockefeller, Christophe Rocancourt was a French con artist who took Hollywood by storm in the 1990s. He didn't have a complex financial scheme. His entire con was based on a simple, audacious lie of identity. He would simply show up and claim to be a member of the legendary Rockefeller family, and people believed him. He used his fake identity to talk his way into exclusive parties, date models and actresses, and live a life of incredible luxury. He convinced wealthy people to invest in his non-existent projects, sometimes just walking away with hundreds of thousands of dollars after a single dinner. Rocancourt understood a fundamental truth about the rich and famous. They are often more interested in who you are than what you have. And if you can fake the first part, the second part will take care of itself. 24. Shinichi Fujimura. For over 2 decades, Shinichi Fujimura was the most celebrated archaeologist in Japan. He had a miraculous talent for finding ancient stoneware artifacts, earning him the nickname God's Hand. His discoveries continuously pushed back the known dates of Japanese history, making him a national hero and rewriting textbooks. The only problem was that his hand wasn't guided by God. It was guided by his own duplicity. In 2000, a newspaper published bombshell photographs of Fujimura, taken with a hidden camera, showing him carefully planting artifacts at an excavation site. He would sneak out in the early morning and bury items from his own collection for him to discover later that day in front of his colleagues. His entire legendary career was a fraud. Built on a foundation of lies, he literally buried himself. 25. Robert Hanssen. Imagine being tasked with hunting down a mole inside the FBI, a traitor selling America's most sensitive secrets to the Soviet Union. Now imagine you are that mole. That was the unbelievable reality for Robert Hanssen, a senior FBI agent who spied for the Soviets and later Russia for 22 years. He was the ultimate insider threat, a man so deeply embedded in counterintelligence that his colleagues, completely unaware, would sometimes ask for his expert advice on how to catch the very spy they were looking for. He used his position to learn what the FBI knew and how to avoid their traps, all while projecting the image of a devout, unassuming family man. His lie wasn't just a betrayal of his country. It was a masterful, long-running performance that compromised national security from the inside out. 26. Ernest Hemingway. Ernest Hemingway crafted an image of himself as the ultimate man's man, a hard-drinking, big-game-hunting war hero adventurer who stared death in the face and laughed. His public persona was as carefully constructed as one of his novels. And while he did see some action and certainly enjoyed a drink, a significant part of his super macho biography was exaggerated or completely fabricated. He inflated his war record, claiming a more heroic role in World War I than he actually played, and told tall tales about his exploits as a spy and a soldier of fortune. He wasn't just writing fiction on the page, he was living a fictionalized version of himself, creating a personal myth that was arguably his greatest and most enduring work. 27. Herodotus. He's known as the father of history, but he might as well be called the father of believing, whatever a guy in a tavern tells you. The ancient Greek writer Herodotus traveled the known world collecting stories for his masterpiece, the Histories. And while he did some groundbreaking work, he also had a charming tendency to include every wild, unverified rumor he heard. His work is a fantastic blend of genuine historical inquiry and pure, unfiltered fantasy. He wrote seriously about giant gold-digging ants in India, people with dog heads, and a race of men with their feet on backwards. He wasn't necessarily a malicious liar, but more of an overly enthusiastic journalist who never let a boring thing like facts get in the way of a truly spectacular story. 28. Frank Abagnale Jr. Before he was even 21, Frank Abagnale Jr. had lived more lives than most people could dream of. His story, famously dramatized in Catch Me If You Can, is a whirlwind of audacious impersonation. As a teenager, he successfully posed as a Pan Am airline pilot, flying for free all over the world. When he got tired of that, he became a doctor, serving as a chief resident in a Georgia hospital, mostly by letting interns handle the difficult stuff. Then he forged a law degree and got a job with the Attorney General of Louisiana. His real genius wasn't in medicine or law, but in forging documents and projecting an unshakable confidence. He built a multi-million-dollar empire of fraud based on the simple lie that he was who he said he was. 29. Milli Vanilli. In the late 1980s, the pop duo Milli Vanilli took the world by storm. With their good looks, charismatic dancing, and hit songs like Girl You Know It's True, Rob Pilatus and Fab Morvan became global superstars, even winning a Grammy for Best New Artist. There was just one massive career-ending problem. They didn't sing a single note. The entire act was a lie, orchestrated by a German music producer who had hired actual singers for the vocals, but wanted more marketable faces for the public. For years, Rob and Fab lip-synced their way through concerts and interviews. The lie finally unraveled when a backing track skipped during a live performance, revealing the fraud to the world. It was one of the most embarrassing scandals in music history. 30. Cesare Borgia. If you want to understand the art of political lying, look no further than Cesare Borgia, the ruthless son of Pope Alexander VI. In Renaissance Italy, a world of shifting alliances and constant backstabbing, Borgia was the grandmaster. His entire career was built on a foundation of broken promises, strategic betrayals, and political theater. He famously invited his military rivals to a peace conference in the town of Senigallia for reconciliation, only to have them all strangled upon arrival. He was the living embodiment of the idea that, in the pursuit of power, the ends always justify the means. His methods were so notoriously deceitful that he became the primary inspiration for Niccolò Machiavelli's cynical masterpiece, The Prince. 31. Coco Chanel. Gabrielle. Coco Chanel built a fashion empire on an image of elegance, independence, and timeless style. She was a master of branding, and her most important product was herself. To create her legend, she simply erased her real past. She invented a glamorous, aristocratic backstory to cover up her true origins as the illegitimate daughter of a street vendor, raised in a grim orphanage run by nuns. But her biggest and darkest lie was one of omission. During World War II, she actively collaborated with the Nazis, living in the Ritz Hotel with a high-ranking German officer. She even tried to use Nazi laws to seize control of the Chanel perfume business from her Jewish partners. After the war, she used her wealth and connections to bury the truth for decades. 32. The False Dimitris. Russian history in the early 17th century reads like a chaotic season of a reality TV show. After the real heir to the throne, Dmitry Ivanovich, died under mysterious circumstances, a power vacuum emerged. Suddenly, a man appeared, claiming to be Dmitry, having miraculously survived an assassination attempt. This false Dmitry I was charismatic, gained Polish support, and actually managed to march on Moscow and become Tsar. Then he was assassinated. But the story doesn't end there. A second false Dmitry appeared, claiming to be the first false Dmitry who had miraculously survived his assassination. Then a third. It was a parade of impostors, each trying to cash in on a lie so brazen that it temporarily worked, plunging the country into a period of chaos known as the Time of Troubles. 33. John R. Doc Holliday. The legend of the American Wild West is built on larger-than-life characters, and few are more iconic than Doc Holliday. He's remembered as a deadly gunslinger, a cold-blooded killer who was just as dangerous with a pistol as he was with a deck of cards. The truth is, while he was certainly a capable gunman, his terrifying reputation was his greatest weapon, and it was a lie he carefully cultivated. In a time and place where fear was a form of currency, Holliday understood the power of a good story. He rarely started fights, but he made sure everyone believed he was more than willing to finish them permanently. Most of the dozens of killings attributed to him are pure fiction. He was a dying dentist with tuberculosis who built a myth around himself as an angel of death, because in the Wild West, it was better to be feared for lies than to be killed for the truth. We've exposed 33 of history's greatest frauds, but the comments will probably show the biggest lie was pretending we could fit them all in one video. So let's hear it. Who is the one unforgivable omission? Which master of deceit did we criminally fail to mention? Don't hold back, tear our list apart below. And while you're down there, destroy the like button and subscribe for more.